Welcome to the Active Bystander Intervention webinar for Exeter and North Devon colleges. North Devon College, and now ENDC, is committed to fostering a respectful, inclusive and safe community for all of its students. We want everyone to thrive during their time here, and part of that is ensuring that everyone has the right to be treated with dignity and respect. Harassment, which includes sexual harassment, bullying, intimidation, and discrimination of all sorts. So, for example, racism, homophobia, transphobia, go against all that we stand for and will not be tolerated. ENDC, or North Devon College, has many policies, processes, teams, and support systems in place to ensure that dignity and respect is happening and that harassment is being addressed. However, we can all play our part in ensuring an inclusive community. So with that in mind, this webinar is going to look at the role that we can all play to be active bystanders and to challenge or intervene in a range of different situations. We're going to look at how we can recognise and respond positively to low-level forms of harassment and potential sexual misconduct. We're going to look at how we can stay safe online, but also keep others safe online as well by being digital bystanders. And we're going to look at how we can report incidents and access the support services that we may need or others may need, and we can help them with signposting. If you get affected by any of the topics covered today, then please access either the safeguarding page, which is shown in the QR code, or head over to the student wellbeing pages, which have the link to the Wellbeing Hub there, and there's lots of information and fantastic resources to support you. We're really keen for you to engage in this content, as it not only gives everyone a toolkit on how to navigate and effectively intervene in potentially challenging situations, but it also gives everyone a clear understanding of both the support processes that the college offers, as well as the ways to report harmful behaviours. However, it's really hard to predict how hearing about these topics will affect us, so please keep in mind that your well-being is paramount. If you start to feel overwhelmed by anything that is being covered, then please feel free to mute, take a break, and view the content at a time that better suits you. This webinar can be found on the college website. For those of you that may have lived experience of forms of harassment and sexual misconduct, then please feel free to exit now and complete our special dispensation form. If you scan that QR code now and fill in the opt-out form, you are more than welcome to leave the webinar. So if you're not too sure or familiar with this term active bystander, don't worry, we're going to go through it. But these are just a few examples of where you could be an active bystander and make a positive influence or difference. So it might be that somebody on your course makes a racially insensitive or racially biased joke. That could be in a private context, could be a public context, but it makes you or others feel uncomfortable. So you could be an active bystander in that situation. It might be that you notice that another student keeps touching another student inappropriately and without their consent, leading to them looking really uncomfortable. Again, you could be an active bystander there. You might witness a queer student being bullied by another student. Again, you could be an active bystander by stepping in, by saying something, by intervening. Or it might be that over time you observe somebody's change in their demeanour, and maybe the language that they're using is becoming more misogynistic after spending excessive periods of time online. Again, we can be active bystanders in those situations as well. So let's start from the beginning by looking at the definition of a bystander. So who is a bystander? Well, a bystander is a person who witnesses a situation or an event or a behaviour, but is not themselves directly involved. We're all bystanders all of the time. So for example, We might see somebody in front of us dropping litter on the floor. We witness it. We may not sort of think about it at all, or we actually might be a bit annoyed by it and recognize it as problematic. And then we have that decision to make whether to just leave it, which is becoming a passive bystander, or to do something about it. And that's when we potentially become active bystanders. We can also become a bystander by hearing about something that has happened from somebody else. So when we start on that journey to becoming an active bystander, research shows that we go through 4 psychological stages before we intervene. So what are those 4 stages? Well, the first one is noticing the event. And that's really about our awareness and being informed. So unless we are informed, we don't notice things or situations or comments or inappropriate jokes happening around us. So for example, we might see something or hear something, but pay no real attention to it and just sort of deem it as ordinary. If we're not aware of it or not looking for it, then we really don't notice it. So it's about being able to recognize and having that awareness to understand what low level sexism, racism, and other forms of discrimination and harassment look like. Once we notice it, we go, okay, that's problematic. I recognize that that behavior is harmful or potentially wrong, and I want to do something about it. So that leads us on to the third stage. We assume that responsibility for doing something about that behavior. I recognize that behavior or that comment is a problem, and I want to do something about it. And this leads us to the fourth and the final stage. And actually, many people get to stage 3. They want to do something, but then don't know what to do. We worry about getting it wrong. We worry about misinterpreting the context. We worry about the focus changing towards me instead. And actually, we need to get more comfortable with navigating that fourth and final stage. But that's about having the skills. And in this webinar, this will be an introduction to the skills that you can then practice. So what can intervention look like? Well, when we hear that word intervention, sometimes it can sound like we're stepping in to a fight or a confrontation. But interventions can take many different forms, and they don't have to be direct confrontation. We can intervene in lots of different ways. Let's focus on the 3 ways that we can intervene. These can be used separately or they can be combined. Let's have a look at them in a bit more detail. The first way that we can intervene is about expressing disagreement to the wrongdoer, and that can take many different forms. The most subtle and starting point for expressing disagreement to the wrongdoer can be body language or facial expressions. Giving somebody a look or a silent stare, or showing disapproval with both body language and facial expressions, can be a good starting point. It also lets other people in that room or in that space know that you're not okay with that behavior as well. However, if people struggle to pick up on subtle social cues, then we might need to be more direct in the language that we use. We can also interrupt or distract, and that's about doing things in the moment. So if somebody's showing bullying behaviors, if somebody's starting to show low-level harassing behaviors, then can we interrupt or distract in the moment? Can we sort of say, oh, I like your watch, where do you get it from? Or, we just change the subject in some way? Oh, what are you doing this weekend? Have you got the time? Oh, I'm thinking about getting a new phone. What have you got? What are you doing after this? Anything to just change or interrupt or distract in the moment. It's about just changing the negative dynamic. Humor can be a good one as well with friends. It can be an opportunity to get somebody to reflect on what they've just said. If they've said something which has taken a joke too far, or they've said something which is inappropriate or out of line, humor can be a way of getting them to reflect on that. So sort of saying to them, I didn't realize that we'd, gone back in time with those views, or, didn't realize that we were making inappropriate dad jokes, or, something to just get them to think about what they've just said. but ideally make it funnier than the examples I've given. Sometimes repeating a comment or a joke back to somebody can be really, really powerful in terms of expressing disagreement. So just sort of saying, hang on, you didn't just say this, did you? Or can I just check that you said, am I right in saying that you said that? Or I I must have misheard because I thought you said this. And saying it back to somebody gets them to hear it back and maybe just realize that what they said was not okay and to actually retract it or change it or apologize for it. So sometimes repeating something back is really, really powerful. There's also loads of phrases and sentences that we can use as well. And they can just range from enough or leave it or mate, that's not okay, or I'm not all right with that comment or yeah, don't think that one's funny, sorry mate. All of these phrases and sentences we can use in the moment to express our disagreement. You know, it could be even sort of slightly sarcastic. I think that's really brave of you to say those thoughts out loud. We can also come from a caring, non-critical place as well. We can reframe the intervention and sort of say, we're friends, right? Or I've known you a while now, so I'm saying this because I care for you. I got to tell you that some of the stuff that you're sending me, or sending us, or some of the stuff that you're resharing online, or some of the stuff that you're looking at online that you find funny, it's not all right. I'd change your algorithm if I was you. It's not good for you. So coming from that caring place can be really powerful as well. The second way that we can be active bystanders or intervene is about supporting the victim. And that's about recognizing what others might be going through. It's calling and sort of drawing on our empathy as well, checking in with somebody. Are they okay? I saw that. I wanted to just see if you're okay. I've noticed that they've said that before. Like, do you want me to say anything? Like next time it happens, what do you want me to do? Checking in with somebody, getting their thoughts on how you can help as well is really, really important. If somebody's being sort of gossiped about or talked about negatively, can you be the person to change the sort of tact or tone on that as well, and affirm and highlight and sort of say, well, actually, do you know what? I don't agree. I think they're amazing. I think maybe you just need to take time to sort of get to know them a bit better as well. So, speaking in that way as well. And if we see somebody looking physically uncomfortable, whether you know them or not, can you try and get them out of a situation? Like, oh hey, nice to see you again. Or I'm walking this way. Do you want to walk with me? Or didn't we go to school together? Oh, do you want to come and have a quick catch up? Don't leave them alone. If, as I said, if they look physically uncomfortable, then they need that support. They need somebody to intervene. And equally, we can support victims of harmful behaviours by helping them seek the right support services for them and or maybe reporting an incident as well through the college, or even if it's bigger than that, if it's potentially a hate crime, then you might be thinking about reporting it through emergency services such as the police as well. The final way that we can be an active bystander or to intervene is about enlisting allies, and that's about getting other people on board. If you're not sure how to handle a situation, speak to others, make them aware of it. Chat to mates, say, did you notice that? Have you heard some of the stuff that they've been saying? Like, can we say something? Like, can we mention it? Can we bring it up? Or like, can we even go and speak to a staff member about it as well? So, getting the college staff members, there are trained people involved as well. So that they're also allies, enlist them, get them on board. It might be that you're a bit worried about somebody and say, like, actually, you might say to a friend, can you just come with me and check that so and so's okay? Because they've really gone quite withdrawn recently and I just want to see if they're all right. So, these are all different ways that we can enlist allies. If you find yourself on your own, look around. Can you call on somebody nearby to support you as well? And then, of course, getting specialist help and assistance. That could be calling upon college staff members. So that could be safeguarding teams, could be sort of well-being teams. It could be the nurses that you have across the college as well. Use the well-being hub, look on there, see the right sort of specialist help and assistance that you can call upon. The golden rule in all of this is only intervene when it's safe to do so. Don't put yourself in a position of danger or jeopardy. Intervention can come in many different forms. Sometimes you can have a quick, quiet word, but sometimes you might need to escalate it to somebody else, speak to somebody else about it. Unfortunately, there are many, many occasions where actually people don't know how to intervene or they choose not to intervene, and then that behavior worsens or grows, and people don't get the support that they need as well. So it's really important to understand the reasons why people don't intervene so we can start to challenge them in ourselves and in others as well. So research shows that these are the main reasons for non-intervention. The first one is about a person doesn't fit in or they're not like me. And this is about relatability. So if they don't look like me or dress like me, I don't see myself in them, they're not in my friendship group, I'm not connected to them in any way, then I'm less likely to help them. And unfortunately, this sometimes comes down to our biases that we carry as well. The second reason for non-intervention is around too many people being around. The more people that there are, the less likely we are to intervene. We're worried about what others might think or the crowd might think. We're worried about drawing attention to ourselves. But it's always worth just doing something if you think it's not okay. Because if you come forward, others will come forward as well. Someone else will do it. That's known as the diffusion of responsibility. That's when we think that, oh, somebody else will say something, or somebody else will check if they're okay, or I'm sure they've got another friend who will just see if they're all right. And of course, if we all think that, then somebody might not have a quiet word said to them to change their behavior, or a victim might not get the support that they might need. So it's always worth just ensuring that you're doing it and not hoping that somebody else is. It's dangerous. That can be a really valid concern as well, and a legitimate fear. If you feel that the situation is dangerous, then don't put yourself in a position of danger. But what else can you do instead? Can you engage allies? Can you report it? Can you ring the emergency services? Can you speak to the college about it? There's loads of ways that we can offset that danger element. And the last one is everyone looks like it thinks everyone else it looks like everyone else thinks it's okay. And that's one we're going to look at in a bit more detail. So across society, but also across college as well, the majority of people show healthy and positive behaviors. They're the green figures. However, when somebody says or does something harmful, it can start to look a bit like this. That harmful behavior or that talk or that joke, if it goes unchallenged, things start to sort of look a bit like this. The wrongdoer looks around the room or the place that they're in, sees that nobody is disagreeing with them, and starts to think, great, everyone must agree with me. And this is what's known as the false consensus. And it makes it more likely that the wrongdoer will keep showing those behaviors. They may even escalate their behaviors as well. So imagine that person has made a sexist or racist or homophobic remark. Imagine that they've physically made their mark on somebody, or if they haven't sought consent from somebody. If nobody says or does anything, that person is likely to believe that their behavior is normal and that others endorse it. Other people in the group then worry that they're unusual because they thought that somebody was going to say something and they're not comfortable with that behavior. But all of a sudden they're questioning whether they should speak up or not because nobody else looks like they're going to speak up. Whereas in reality, nobody is okay with the behaviour that's been shown. It's just nobody has spoken up or said anything. Nobody has intervened and nobody has challenged that behaviour. And that is when we start to see a normalisation of quite harmful behaviours. So where we want to make sure that we remain across both Exeter and North Devon colleges is that healthy and positive behavior is not just the normalized behavior, but it's also perceived to be the norm as well. And that actually people realize that they can safely and effectively call out that behaviour, because they're not the only ones who think like that. Others think like that as well. And the massive positive about this is that that behaviour, that negative behaviour, reduces over time. So this will leave us in this position of that healthy and positive behaviour being the majority behaviour. So why are we here? Well, a big part of this is about understanding and recognising low-level behaviours, particularly around harassment and what's known as sexual misconduct. And sexual misconduct really just means low-level sexual harassment. So knowing what these terms mean is essential in creating that safe environment for everyone, because if we know what they are, we know what they look like, then we can call them out and we can challenge them. Because unfortunately, the reality across both further education and higher education is that there is too much harassment occurring. So there are too many issues, there's too high levels of harm and harassment taking place. Full-time students are the most likely occupational group to experience sexual harassment and sexual assault. So it is crucial that we recognise and challenge all forms of harassment and discrimination, but in particular, both racial and sexual harassment. And what are the types of behaviours or conduct that can make up sexual harassment? Well, they can be varied. So they can be verbal harassment, such as wolf whistling, catcalling, sexualized comments, sexual innuendos, telling sexual jokes or stories, spreading rumours about a person's sex life. It can also as well be non-verbal harassment, such as, inappropriate staring, displaying pictures of a sexual nature, sending images or DMs or messages or Snapchats of a sexual content without consent. It's about making sexual gestures or asking for sexual favors. Sexual harassment will overlap with the criminal law on sexual offences when physical contact is involved. So once any touching of the other person is involved, then that starts to constitute sexual assault and could be pursued in the criminal courts as a sexual assault. Some forms of sexual harassment may overlap with other criminal offences as well, such as harassment, stalking, and intimate image abuse. It's also worth noting as well that harassment can take many other forms. So it can be verbal abuse, offensive messages or emails, tweets or comments on websites and social media, images and graffiti, physical gestures, and jokes, banter, or pranks. And we talk about this because it's really important to understand how the low-level behaviours link to the higher level harms. So this is the pyramid of harm. It's a model for understanding how low-level harassment or low-level harms connect to the more high-level or severe harms. So the microaggressions, the little behaviours, the low-level harassment, the biased attitudes and beliefs, they are the building blocks for more severe harms. Each level helps create a conducive context for the one above it. So even if you don't hold sexist or racist views, if you make those jokes, if you laugh along and you become complicit, if you reshare content which encourages that low level harassment, then you encourage those who do hold those views to take it further. So ultimately, whatever it might be, sexism or racism is dehumanizing. It's based on the core idea that people consider themselves more worthwhile than others. Crucially, for us as active bystanders, there are more opportunities for us to intervene towards the bottom of the pyramid. So these lower level things are more common and they're more amenable to bystander intervention. As we go towards the top, we're less likely to witness these events, and they would involve calling upon specialist services. The failure for us to intervene can empower wrongdoers to take their behaviour further. But when we do intervene, we destabilize this pyramid. So we withdraw our support for those low-level behaviors. We let people know that they're not funny, or they're not okay, or they're not acceptable, and we help prevent those more severe harms. And it's not just in person that we can do it. We can do it online as well. So it's about keeping ourselves and others safe, first of all. And that might just be about considering what we send somebody. It might be about don't send your own personal information. Don't put yourself in a position where you can be sort of sextorted. So, sending a picture to somebody that you think you know, and then they can use that against you. Try to send as little sort of personal or private information as possible, unless you really know that it's that person. It's about taking time to reflect on the narratives that we absorb online as well. And actually, if they're starting to impact or negatively impact our mental health or our worldview, then work hard to try and change your algorithm. Ensure that respect is shown online as well as in person. That's a really crucial, important thing. And consider who you engage with online as well, to make sure that you're not getting yourself in a position where you experience sort of bullying or trolling behaviors as well. And as I mentioned, we can be that positive influence online as well. We can be those digital bystanders. So, that might be a case of responding to somebody who's made a really inappropriate comment on a social media post or in a group chat. Call it out, challenge it, ask them to retract it, or to delete it. Educate them if that's what's required. It might be about reporting incidents as well, and reporting harassment and discrimination to the platform itself. It might be about reporting it to the college if needs be as well. If it's within a community and it's got a moderator, report it to the moderator as well. Lastly, you can report it to the authorities, but again, just be careful about how you do that as well, and do it in line with the law. The same goes for recording things that are happening. So if you do record anything by taking screenshots or videos or writing it down, especially if it involves a pattern of offences, be sure that you do this in a way that's safe and in line with the law. Rebuke means to push back and to challenge sexual harassment and inappropriate comments and those kind of behaviors by calling it out and explaining why it's harmful. And then resource is about reaching out to people that have experienced harmful behaviors, those victims, and offer signposting or provide support as well. In all of this, please continue to remember the golden rule of only intervene when it's safe to do so. In this webinar, we've talked a lot about reporting or accessing support. And so it's really worth familiarizing yourself with this page. So if you go to the Student Harassment and Sexual Misconduct in Higher Education page on the North Devon College website, you can find on there all the information you need for informal reporting, formal reporting, to understand the investigation and resolution processes. You can understand what happens. You can find contact information. So that's your single source of information for harassment and sexual misconduct. Just before this webinar finishes, it's worth just summarising a few little bits. It's worth thinking about knowing your limits as a helper. So when you do engage with somebody, or if you are an active bystander, get allies if necessary. Don't try and do it all. Share the load out. You might need to come up with a plan if you're going to say something and work out what your message is going to be. You might need to prepare and practice what you're going to say. In the moment, if it's serious enough, can you interrupt or distract or delay in a situation that you think might become problematic? It's about setting boundaries as well. Don't make excuses for somebody. Hold them accountable. Otherwise, we're enabling them to show those harmful behaviours. And of course, again, that golden rule is crucial. Only intervene when it's safe to do so. Thank you ever so much for engaging in this webinar today. Just remember that any small action that you take can make huge changes to an individual. So all it takes is you. Thank you ever so much for your time. This is now the end of the webinar.